Welcome to LYLAS. If you grew up in the 90s and know what that stands for, then by default, this podcast is for you.
Welcome, welcome. So today, in our true organic sense of things, maybe a little bit of a different topic planned, but I realized that I was somewhat caught up in this like midlife crisis and felt like the best place to talk about it would be on our podcast. How does that sound?
This is a topic that's always on our minds, whether we want to admit it or not. We're 40 and we're always thinking about aging at this point, whether you're at a restaurant, you're not getting carded anymore, or you're finding those gray hairs more frequently popping up, or, you're noticing your friends are starting to look fresh with their new Botox, whatever it is. It's typically on our minds these days. I feel like, at least mine.
Yes, 100%. And, we saw one of our good friends post about this on her own like personal page the other day, and it got the conversation kind of like started a little bit. And then so today we'll go into this some, but I was getting a hydrofacial done, and hydrofacials are great because they help to exfoliate, bring new skin, brighten you up, whatever all those great things are. And I'm doing this because I'm trying to fight the wrinkles and the dark circles that are under my eye and all of this stuff, maybe even like a losing battle kind of point. And so the way I coped with it then afterwards was obviously to go to a boutique that was clearly meant for 20-year-olds and, get a whole bunch of stuff. So this is the odd kind of place and space that I'm just kind of finding myself in. And I just feel like it's almost like, and I'm going to take more of maybe like a darker spin on it. I feel like I'm at war almost with time, with culture, what it says we should and should not be looking at, what we should be doing at this kind of age or not. I feel like that, it's our own belief in self. Like, do I feel bad because I have these things, or do I think I look bad? Like, I honestly don't know. I'm just doing it. You know what I mean? And I'm not doing some other things that I just don't have like firm grounding as to where this is all kind of coming from. And so again, it's this whole kind of thing being in flux. And then I'm then conflicted by what does this say to our kids? Like in the moment, I started thinking, well, I don't want them to think that they're not perfect or that they're not made as they should be or that they have imperfections that can be corrected. But then I thought about it from a later point, and I don't have, thankfully, as everybody knows, I don't have a biological little girl, so this changes my thoughts about it some. But if I did, and I was doing a bunch of different stuff, I don't know that I would be giving her a picture of what she might look like being older. And I don't even know why that's important to me, but whenever I heard somebody else say it, I was like, oh my gosh, like that kind of sticks. And so this is where I'm at, folks. I'm like thick in the mud of trying to figure out, again, where do we kind of fit in this whole thing?
And see, I feel like I come at aging from a different perspective. I like to embrace age. I feel grateful every time that calendar rolls around to August 1st and I can celebrate another birthday. It's like I did it. I lived another year on this earth. And so I try to embrace it. I'm not going to lie. It certainly crosses my mind all the time, especially living in Charleston. I feel like I say that a lot on here, but I've had interns over the last decade. And they're about 10 years younger than me, which is always like a reminder of how old I am when they come in. I'm always like, they're like our age. And they're like, yeah, you're not my age. But they would talk about Botox a lot and how their friends were getting it at such a young age, like 22, 23 years old, 24. And I'm like, I have definitely missed that boat. I have not gotten Botox, not to say that I haven't thought about it, but I just have never, acted on it. And so it's been interesting to me being here. Of course, now I have friends that have tried it or get it regularly. And so it does tend, the article you were referring to that this girl we went to high school with, she had posted, and I think she's maybe a year younger than us, but it was about being the last wrinkly friend. And I thought it hit the nail on the head when I read it, because it talks about, noticing more gray hairs, not getting carded anymore, and just being constantly kind of like, should I get Botox? Well, my friend got it. She thinks it's great. She looks great. Maybe I should get it. I've got these wrinkles. And so it sort of hits the nail on the head where we're all at right now. And either you've gotten it and you feel great, or, it's your thing. Or you're still sort of like, I don't know, I kind of want to see if I can just age and do it somewhat gracefully. And that's the space that I'm in. I think I commented, like, I'll buy all the potions and lotions, like, give me all the eye creams, give me all the serums. You should see my skincare routine. It's quite involved these days, but I'm more just like, how well can I take care of myself versus like, putting like filler or Botox. And I'm not against it. Like I said, tomorrow I could totally change my mind, but it just right now, I'm like, I would rather do sort of these things and see where this takes me. And then I started thinking like, okay, well, what kind of got me into this? Because my mom wasn't super into like skincare routines or, just like any kind of like facial. Mom didn't do those types of things. And so I totally credit my in-laws and my mother-in-law specifically for introducing me to the world of facials and how amazing they are, but also just like a general skincare routine that I've always been one that washed my face. I was all in with Noxzema back in the 90s.
Noxzema.
Then I was big into like that St. Ives apricot scrub that I think me and every other child or woman our age was using. And then my mother-in-law and I went to the spa where we get our facial sometimes. They did like an in-service and taught us all about skincare and sort of pinpointed that using St. Ives every day was terrible for my skin, that basically using a scrub was like, like a scratch in the skin, sort of like I wasn't giving my skin time to like heal, and that you need a gentle cleanser. A scrub is good like once a week or something like that. So I learned a lot and completely switched up my skincare routine. But I really come from that angle of just trying to embrace it and not be too critical, not get too close to the mirror. You can see everything. Thank God for filters. That what is it? Paris filter on Instagram is my favorite. That smooths that forehead right on over.
Gosh, I'll have to check that out. Okay.
I love a good filter on there. But yeah, it's touching. It's a nerve for sure, especially Botox. It's everywhere. And I think you can tell generally people our age who have had it, whether it's done well or not.
Yeah. I think you're right in that. And I so much admire your approach to embracing it, because that's definitely better than just, I don't know, kind of being at a place of flux with it. And I don't know, it's just so weird and odd, but I haven't done anything. So that must mean I'm embracing it to a degree. And I think that some of this is just, some of what I choose to wear is just because I'm playful. As a person, I'm just playful and I like to be playful. And I think of like clothing or fashion as like art and expression. And so that's why I tend to gravitate, I think, a little bit more to that. But it's just it was odd that I had done one thing that was, anti-aging. And then on the other hand, I'm doing something that is clearly not for the aged, I guess, in some ways, and so, yeah, and just, I don't know, the ways in which we can age are so visual, like you're saying. I mean, it is in our face. Obviously, nature does not make this hair color, So I do dye my hair, obviously. And I probably will forever, but that wasn't even something that my mom did, just like what you're talking about, She wasn't, maybe gracefully and thankfully, like kind of all caught up in this. My grandmother, though, who, I only had one grandparent growing up, and she was like my pea in my pod kind of a thing. She would never, ever walk out of her house until almost the day that she was 100% non-cognizant, without makeup on.
Mm-hmm.
That woman, and it wasn't even like she had to like, she didn't even fight her wrinkles or anything else like that, but she always had her Avon makeup
Mm-hmm.
just on point, and she just, it didn't matter if she was going to Village Inn, which was this really like fun place back in our hometown, to the grocery store, or if she was going to the gym. I mean,
Full face.
oh, Grand was to the nines. She had her
Nice.
jewelry. Oh yeah, she was just blinging, and she had her lipstick, and she had her eyes going. And I think that that was a big influence, obviously, because she was a huge influence in my life in so many different ways. But I mean, I don't know. So here we are
I,
today.
that's such a good point. I think about my grandmothers and they were the same way. They were always, just always looked their best. And my mom's mom went white or gray, white hair early on, and
Mm-hmm.
she just fully embraced it. And she had the most beautiful white hair as a kid when I was growing up. I always thought she was so put together, so
Mm-hmm.
classy, so beautiful. But she did, I mean, you never saw her looking ragged out in public. Like you see me all the time
Stop.
in my yoga pants and hair in a ponytail. Like I sometimes think like, oh, if grandma could see me now, she'd be like, get yourself together. But I also like what you said. You brought up a good point earlier when we were talking, like considering what your spouse's expectations are for you and your maintenance or just like what's important to them. I know my husband and I talk about it all the time, and I'm like, he would support me if that was something that I felt strongly I needed to be happy. But he's like, I don't think you need it. Like, I think, he's like, I think you need all of the skincare stuff? I'm not so sure about that either. But he fully like supports, all the things that I do, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
facials or whatever. He never, says anything about it. But I like that he's like, let's just age gracefully together. Let's just
Mm-hmm.
be who we are. And men, I think in general, tend to age well. Like they just tend to be
Yeah.
more attractive, whether they get wrinkles or laugh lines or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas women, we look at it and go, oh, like I gotta get rid of these 11s or this frown face, whatever it is.
Right.
Men, I don't know. And maybe they just embrace themselves more and they seem more confident. I wonder what the difference is because they're certainly not doing a 12-step skincare routine every night. At least my husband's not.
No, ma'am. Mm-mm. No, and yeah, you're right. My husband, he just do the skincare routine, and I think that he has, kind of embraced aging, um, in a lot of ways. He calls himself, I call him a silver fox because he's got some like silver coming in, and it works. And so with
Works for them.
them, yeah, it just has like a more kind of like, I don't know, natural, attractive. There's something about it that just seems to gel better. And I hate that we're kind of in a war with the sexes, or not even war, but it's just a comparison. But it's so true as to how they just feel differently, I think, about this. Now, he's not real pleased with having aches and pains and having to go to like a doctor because he's not somebody that, grew up in doctor's offices like I did. Um, so that part I think is a little tougher from that perspective. But in
Yeah.
terms of like outward appearance or doing, like you said, maintenance, like we as
Mhm.
women are doing literal maintenance on
Maintenance.
ourselves.
Yes.
That's insane.
Yes.
Oh, it's such a word.
That's how
Yeah.
I refer to my hydrofacials because I only get them like 2, 3, 4 times a year. And I'm like,
Mhm.
these are my maintenance. I'll like do other facials throughout the year, but hydrofacials, I kind of reserve as like my
Mhm.
special time,
Mhm.
um, you know, give me a dermaplane on top of a
Yes,
hydrofacial. And I mean, that's a good day right there.
it
Um,
is. Yeah.
but it is all about maintenance. I mean, I feel like that's essentially what we're trying to do is at least maintain what we have
Mhm.
for as long as we can. My husband he doesn't struggle with like his skin or wrinkles or anything like that.
Mhm.
He struggles with not being as physically, um,
Mhm.
I don't even want to say fit, but like capable as he used to be in his 20s. So, like, like if he's not winning every competition at the gym, or if he's not, whatever he does, he expects himself to be the best at it or
Yeah.
like one of the top tier. And so
Mhm.
he's getting older, he's not running, 5-6 minute miles or whatever he did before, he really struggles with that. And he's like, oh, I'm an old man. That's the only time he ever refers to himself as an old man.
Yeah.
He doesn't perform athletically the way that he used to be able to do in his early 20s.
Yeah, I think that must be the difference then, is that sometimes I'll think about some of that stuff, but they do tend to, I think, go down that track where they think about themselves and their abilities.
Yes.
And, the aches and pains that kind of come along with it, or that their maybe maintenance in some ways is different. Like I said, like starting to have to go to a doctor or feeling like your back hurts. Those are things that I think are a struggle as we start to move into this point in time. And if we're feeling this way, our husbands are feeling this way, it may be different, but it's still part of that like co-aging process that we're going through. And how are we supporting one another? How are we, making each other feel good or validated, and kind of what's going on with things? And then what are we working within ourselves to kind of help out with that view, in a sense, So my husband is so, and God, he knew that I did pageants before we got married. Okay. And I honestly don't, like right now, I don't have on any makeup except mascara and a little bit of lip color because I had a hydrofacial. So the shine you see is from the hydrofacial.
Which looks really good, by the way.
I love
beaming today.
And my ring light. So we got to give credit to the ring light. But there's no filters, no makeup. But he hates it whenever I have on makeup. And that was something that is just a part of that. Is just me. Like I said, my grandmother was probably putting makeup on me whenever I was like, I don't know, in the bassinet. So I wear it sometimes, but not all of the time. But he is not a fan of me having on like any makeup whatsoever. He tolerates me getting my hair dyed. He just doesn't think that any of that stuff's necessary. And he is fine with the hydrofacials and stuff like that, because I'm not permanently or like really altering my face. I'm just doing like a good skincare regimen. I'm helping to just, again, naturally promote some youthfulness or shine or whatever it is. But he is adamantly against doing fillers, injections of any type of like body modification. He's just like a hard line in. And I appreciate that about him, because I don't know how I'd feel if it was on like the other side of it. Like, you need to do this, because then I would really feel insecure about myself. But yeah, he's just like, no, like you just stay, just you be you. And so, even with our husbands having so many of these similarities in this, his is just adamantly, and I don't know, I mean, if I was pushed to do that, and I'm not, as much as what I do within, you think that within the beauty industry and stuff like that, that we would all be doing these things, but we're not, and we don't have to. And, you could still be at like Fashion Week, or you could still, go out and do some of these things without necessarily having to do all of that. And I think that's an important message. But it's just still, I don't know where the conflict in me looking and seeing that and then wanting something. It's not even that I think that it looks necessarily bad. I just I don't know. It's a yucky. I'm not as good as embracing that as what you are. Let's put it that way.
Well, it's a reminder you're not 20 years old. And I think ultimately that's what it boils
That's my
down
problem.
to. Yes. That's my problem. It's the visual reminder that you are aging and that you're getting older and that time is passing. And that's hard for anybody, or I think for most people, to grasp sometimes. I mean, I don't know about you, but even like every time my kid has a birthday, it's like, oof, it's another year has gone by. It's 1 year, closer to them moving out or becoming an adult. Like, it's just that process of time sometimes is really hard for us to embrace, whether it's on your face or looking at your kids, whatever it is that's causing that like glare in your face. I think that it's just something that we have to embrace it. I know for me, like I said, my daily rituals, and we're going to do a whole podcast episode on rituals and routines, because we, really see the value in that. But, my daily 5 that I do is really geared towards anti-aging. And and some of the things that I think are most important in preserving what we have already as naturally as we can.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I'm real big on hydration. I don't do great, but my number one thing, first thing in the morning, I have my hot water with lemon just to start that hydration process for the day. Movement is big, meditation, all of those things that I see is like strengthening the mind, the body.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe it to be kind of the fountain of youth. If you are moving your body every day, engaging in exercise, I look at my in-laws and their friends, and they truly have made a lifestyle of working out every day. Whether it's a workout per se, or they went cross country skiing or went on a 15-mile bike ride or whatever they did, they truly put fitness in every single day of their life. And so I look at them and how great they look, and how, my mother-in-law has never had any kind of Botox or fillers, and
really? Oh my
nothing.
gosh.
She's never done anything. Like, now she does facials and she has a great skincare routine and those types of things, but she's never done any kind of medical treatment. So
good for her. She's hot too. She's really good.
I mean, she's got a great body. She really has embraced it. And I think she has set such a great example for me personally of, just what can happen if you take care of yourself. And then as far as the rest of my day, looking at gua sha, or my daily 5, I gua sha every day. And I think that that's also just important for skincare, whether it's your whole body, your face. I gua sha the whole body, but every day I gua sha my face as just part of my routine. It's just, it takes 3 to 5 minutes, and I definitely believe it has made a positive impact on my skin. So
what
that's
is
a big
this?
thing for me. A little gua sha. I should have brought it, but it's just a little stone. It's usually made out of like rose quartz or some sort of stone. And I use it with like an oil that I massage into my moisturizer. I put that on my face, and then you just sort of, there's like a system that you go in, but you just sort of don't pull the skin, but you gently like glide the stone over your skin. And it's just changed. I've noticed I do it religiously every day, and I have genuinely noticed it change my skin, whether it's the oil. I think it's probably a combination of all of it, but I just have noticed a positive impact from that. And then the 5th thing that I do every day is like listen to a podcast or read a book, something again, more for the mind. But I see all of these as like anti-aging tactics that I'm using. And I do those 5 things every day, habitually. So
I love it.
Again, I think it was interesting when I was thinking about this morning. I'm like, I kind of am doing a lot of prevention just in the 5 things that I picked to do every day. When I sat down back in the fall, I was like, all right, I'm going to get into a routine. And I picked like my 5 non-negotiables every day. Those 5 things I just listed. And really, they're all just aging prevention, if you think about it, what it boils down to. But I also think I meant to mention this earlier. Botox is, I think that article says it as well. It's such a, it's not accessible for everybody. And like you said, it's expensive, it's time consuming. And so also acknowledging that it really is, not for everyone, just for those reasons alone, but there's so many other things that we can do to take care of ourselves, to help with our self-esteem, help us kind of age gracefully. And I see that with some of the people that we went to high school with, I see them really embracing that, whether they're letting their hair gray or posting pictures without filters on, you can just tell we're all kind of in that same age group. And so it does seem to be, that some people are choosing just different methods, and that's okay. All the methods are okay. I mean, if Botox is your thing, then more power to you. You look great, and I'm probably jealous of you, quite frankly.
100%.
But I think it's okay to say that maybe that's not for me either. That's just not my thing, and that's okay too. But then, how do we get out of the comparison trap?
Yes, and that's really what I think it kind of comes down to, is like that comparisons trap. And for me, I know I'm putting it all on myself. Like, I know 100% fact. And I don't know, if I get proved wrong in this, then it just is what it is. But I just don't think that, and the person that matters the most to me in terms of how I look is my husband. This man
Yeah.
he loves it. He's
Mm-hmm.
not gonna, I truly believe him. And I didn't at first. I swear I didn't at first. I was like, you're hot, like you were gorgeous. So you have absolutely got to be lying to me about whenever, I've just come in from a long run, or I've just done some silly stuff and I have no makeup on. I'm nasty, I'm skanky, hair not brushed, whatever. And he's like, this is your most beautiful. I was like, oh, no, sir, But I do believe him whenever he says that. And I think that he is honest in his reflections about me just kind of like staying, you know what I mean? The way you are, just kind of go with it. And I don't even think that it's that I think that I feel like I look bad, but I think that I just want to at times look different.
Yeah.
And that's just where I'm kind of toying and sitting with things. And I do love your daily 5. Like, I don't know if you saw me, but I was sitting there and you're like, what?
What are these again?
What are we doing? Show me this tool. But I do think that so much of it does come down to how you care for yourself. And what you put in your body does serve as that outward nourishment too. And, I think one day I measured. But again, medically, it's almost like I'm always thirsty, so I always have to. But I can probably drink close to like 2 gallons of water a day.
That's wild. It's so
Oh
good.
my gosh.
I mean, that you actually consume that much. I have to force myself to drink a gallon a day.
But I always, like in our diet kind of talk when we talked about it, that was what I just grew up drinking. So it's not natural for me to go to anything else except, water, but it does. Our skin is the largest organ in our body. And if we're not recognizing and nourishing that the same way that we do, like with our heart or with our other kind of components, then we're really kind of missing out on a game here. But another thing that you said with your daily 5 that I think is so important for us to take notice of, maybe at this age as a form of preservation in a sense, is our cognitive abilities. Because aging nips away at some of that stuff too. So the fact that you're reading or that you're doing something that is stimulating or engaging, we know that is helpful. But it just is, I think, right now for us to find something that we can, like, I always try to learn something new. Like, that's my goal. Like, I'm not, and this is my husband does not like about me. I am not the person that will sit down and read a book. It's just
not your thing. Never has been.
No, my dad read to me my high school books that I had to for like our AP classes or for our humanities. That poor man would literally, we'd be driving to New York or something to see his brother and would be reading aloud to me in the car. That's how all this stuff got done.
Like a live books on tape.
Oh,
today Audible would be really good for you.
I listened to it today. Yeah.
Did you?
Audible. Yeah.
So you're listening to things. I mean, you're still, you know what I mean? Even if you're not reading, I just think it's consuming information. I consider myself a lifelong learner. I think you do too. And so, especially if I'm reading about something of interest, it's really easy for me to kind of focus on that. And sometimes it's just a blurb. Sometimes it's a Bible verse. It doesn't have to be anything where I sit down and dedicate like a half hour to it, but it's just something every day, something thought provoking, whatever it is. I like to incorporate that into like my daily sequence. Journaling is another thing that counts under that one for me. Sometimes I journal and I get in like stretches where I journal a lot and then like I won't journal for like a month and then I will again. It just depends on sort of my mood a lot of the time, my time, what my calendar will allow. But yeah, I think that just having something every day, kind of flexing those muscles in the mind. Meditation is so big for me because it was so hard in the beginning. Like I really struggled to meditate for like 3 minutes and I would just be thinking the whole time and like judging my practice the whole time. And I mean, I meditated for 20 minutes this morning like it was nothing. Like as soon as it was time to open my eyes, I felt like I had just closed them. So I have really like built that muscle in my mind, and I use it a lot whenever I feel waves of anxiety coming on or stressful thoughts. I can immediately kind of drop into that zone, and I've never been able to do that before. So I have seen the power of that practice every day start to actually benefit me in in other parts of my day, not like necessarily the moment that I'm meditating. Sometimes I have like an epiphany or like a big thought come through, but most of the time I see it in the way that I react later. I'm not as reactive. I'm not as just pissy or, just short, sometimes as we can be with our significant others. Like it changes my reactions throughout the day. And so I see that positive impact.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like you said, just being able to modulate so much of that is preservative to our entire system from aging, from anything negative. It's just being able to have those like drop-in moments.
That stress management, because talk about aging right there, the stress. And I mean, you have so much on your plate. I know you have stress just by the sheer volume of things that you have going on in your life.
I don't think about it. I swear there are times in which I get stuck in loops, and I mean that. And ask my husband, I get stuck in some really nice like loops and just let my tires spin and just cause a huge mess. But I don't know how, I don't even know if it's probably abnormal. In fact, I'm sure it is. I can literally I just do things. I don't think about them. If I make a list, I'm not assigning an emotional label to the task that I'm getting ready to do. Or if I, like today, I had a whole bunch of stuff that we, had to do before we do this. And then I'm driving to Tennessee and then I'm driving back tomorrow. And so there's a bunch of other moving parts, but I think it's an active form of meditation. I really try to just be present where I'm at in this moment in space. And that's all I can do. So the only thing that I can do right now is this. So me even thinking, concentrating, stressing, or worrying about what I'm going to be doing at 9:00 tonight is just not functional. And if something comes down to not being functional or effective, then with most of my heart, most of the time, I just don't even entertain it as a possibility. It's not 100% fall through. Like I said, I get, the rails come off this train.
Happens to the best of us.
Oh, and you're gonna know it. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the other side to this, is that it's normally just like I can do whatever, and I'm 100% fine with doing all of it. But the moment that the rails come off the train, yeah, it's not just like, I don't know, a small explosion. Like we're talking like the fury of 1,000 suns. Like,
yeah,
and that's gonna burn for a bit. So there's that. But I mean, honestly, most of the time, that's where I stay. I just literally stay in the moment. And if you ask me to repeat myself on something, 9 times out of 10, I'm never able to do it because I'm only just like right here. My patients will be like, "Hey, will you say that again?" And I'm like, "What?" Like, I have no idea what I just said. Right. And so I'm like, I don't know. And whenever I tell you I am this way, this is just literally it. So
no, I've seen it firsthand. There's really no preparation for these podcasts. And we're just like, yeah, we're going to talk about this for a while. And it just sort of rolls off the tongue. And I'm always impressed whenever you do interviews for the news or, whenever they interview you to weigh in on something, how you just off the cuff, everything's off the cuff. And I know you well enough to know that you're just rolling off the cuff, but I'm like, you're really good at that presence of like, this is what I'm talking about right now and staying focused. You're not thinking about anything else. You're able to just kind of let it flow. And I think that that's, kind of a superpower, quite frankly, to be able to keep your mind very clear. You're very good at like compartmentalizing things too. Just, keeping things where they need to be sort of in check so that you can stay really focused and present in the moment. So I know you don't necessarily practice a meditation every day, but I think you do in your own way.
Mm-hmm.
because you do a lot of grounding techniques. And like I
Oh,
said,
100%.
you're really good at being like, okay, I can't worry about 9 o'clock. I've got to worry about what I'm doing right this very second.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's
So
much more of an active meditation for me. That
yeah.
I think that that's a very true point, is that it's very active and engaged, but I think and so much of this just fits our personality, whether it's our acceptance
Mm-hmm.
towards aging or where we're kind of at within our relationships, our career. It's just taking the moment to acknowledge what's happening right now in the present and not even judging it or really questioning it, just sitting with it as knowing that there's almost like this little chasm, or there's this little itch that is present, and I don't need to do anything else with it except acknowledge that it's present. And so that's why I'm saying, like, whenever I was like, thinking about like my aging, and now I'm buying hipsters or crop tops or you know
Don't do it.
I
Oh
did
Lord.
big time. Yep. Yep. I went down the crop top rabbit hole.
Wow.
Well
Wow.
down in that. But at that, again, it's just like, I'm just like, well, okay, this is just where I'm at with it. I don't really know what to do with it. So I'm just going to let it be.
I mean, ultimately, if a crop top makes you happy and makes you feel good about yourself, then it's fine. Like, do you?
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with that, but wearing a crop top just to like fit in or look younger or
Yeah.
try to,
No.
have people perceive you in a different way, maybe that's just not for the best reasons. But if you feel good about it
Uh-uh.
and they're in style, by all means. My husband is adamantly against mom jeans. Like he would burn every last pair on the planet if he could. He hates them. He actively hates mom jeans. And he gets so mad if I like even think about, I'm like, oh, look at these. He's like, absolutely
Mhm.
not. And I heard somewhere that women dress for other women, which is probably a lot true. Or we dress for
Mhm.
ourselves, what we think
Just
is
for
in
yourself. Yeah.
style or what looks good. But 9 times out of 10, like men either don't notice or they
Oh.
don't like fashion. They don't like whatever's in style at the time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's funny if like the person we're trying to impress,
Mm-hmm.
our spouse or our significant other, and like they're just not into it.
Yeah.
It's just you're constantly trying to battle. Okay, what's in style, or at least
Mm-hmm.
at this age, I feel like I'm more concerned with dressing appropriately, dressing comfortably. Not having a routine was hard for me. Um, and so it helped me sort of like, okay, I need to get these 5 things done before I drop the kids off at school.
Yeah.
And it helped me kind of like focus my mornings a little bit better. So I didn't spend them just doom scrolling on social media.
Yeah. Totally.
So it's sort of my morning practice. It gets my head right, gets my mind right, gets my body right, and
Mm-hmm.
then I feel like I can tackle the day.
Yeah.
So we'll do a deep dive on that when we get to that episode on rituals and routines, because that's something I'm pretty passionate about, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
child rearing, anything you do. I'm really big on being routine and consistent. And as I said before, consistency is my word for this year. It's not something that comes easy to me. But once I start to get consistent, I'm really good at maintaining that. It's just getting that going is always super hard for me.
That's fair.
So yeah, so that's something that I've focused on this year, is just being more consistent with everything that I do.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's really the key to anything, I think. Whatever you're doing, it's kind of key.
Yeah, it totally is. That's for sure. And you're right. It is so hard to kind of, take those initial steps and then figure out, give yourself some patience and some compassion in seeing what consistency routine works for you. It may not be the same thing that works for everybody else, but allowing yourself to do that. So I think
And
some
being
of my,
patient, like you said,
yes.
giving yourself some grace and saying, like, you may not notice the shift immediately,
Mhm.
but you will notice a shift if you trust whatever process you choose and stay focused and consistent.
Yeah, stay the course with it for sure. So my
Mm-hmm.
takeaways from this episode are basically definitely looking into the daily five here, right? Always looking to learn and do something new. But I think too, and just us kind of talking about this as a whole, I'm looking forward to maybe sitting down with like my husband, and just talking about aging. Like we're at this kind of
Yeah.
point with things, and I'm just really curious as to moving forward, what are your thoughts about yourself, about, me, about us? Like, where are we at within this space and place together?
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of, I just think that could be a very interesting like conversation to have, and kind of going over it in these different areas. And, I think that I could learn a lot from him and how he
Mm-hmm.
views certain things. And, as well as, maybe, him learning a little bit about my side of, like the whole process of it too. And so I'm looking forward to using this as like a tool, like an exploration tool within our
Mm-hmm.
relationship. I think that that's going to be fun. And I think, whether you decide to dye your hair, get injections of any type, go under the knife or whatever, it's all about you just being you and doing whatever feels right to you.
Mm-hmm.
Just period. It's not about like what society or what, the next,
What your
keeping up
friends are
with the
doing.
Jones. No,
Right.
no. It's just what feels right to you. And I think that that's what's most important, is just as individuals living our truest, genuine self as to whatever that would be. And so I just think that those are big kind of points and takeaways from it. So, we'll just kind of see where all this stuff goes again,
Yeah.
right?
So we'll post it was called The Last Wrinkly Friend. We'll post that little blog on our website resources page for anybody that's interested and wants to go read that for themselves. It's a good little fun read, just about kind of what we're talked about today, that experience. So check that out under our resources page. And then also, I feel like I mention it every podcast, but it's my guru, my go-to, Melissa Wood Health. You can check out her app for guided meditations. She has several providers on that app, so it's not just her. It's like $90 a year. It's a no-brainer to me. If you're trying to get into meditation and movement, you have access to all of her workouts. She's got nutrition information on there. She's got a ton of stuff. She also has a podcast, which inspired my Daily Five. She had, it's called Move with Heart is her podcast, but she had the Skinny Confidential, Lauren Bostic, I believe is her name, but she was on Melissa Wood's podcast, Move with Heart. And they talked about just having, like, she has certain things that she does every day. And that's really what inspired. At the same time, I was reading that Habits book by James Clear. Can't think of the name of it. I didn't finish it. Need to get back into that. It was a great book. What I read, I just kind of put it down and never picked it back up. But I was sort of like meshing the two of like, okay, she has these habitual things that she does, and then it talks about how to develop habits. And so that's when I came up with the Daily Five. Back in the fall, I was just like, five's my number. I'm going to pick 5 things that I know that I can accomplish that will help me feel successful, or at least like productive at the beginning of each day.
Yeah.
So highly recommend checking out that episode of Move with Heart if you're interested in this type of thing, like habits. As we said, we're going to go into it in our own podcast, but always like to shout out some of our gurus that we are using and looking towards to help maintain our mental health, because that's really what we're all about.
Yeah.
Maintenance, baby.
It's all maintenance. Everything is always work, right? But at least we could try to have some fun with it, or some splashes of color or whatever else that may be as a piece of it. So yeah, I love it. I think it's also fun and very useful. This is all very useful practices, right?
That's right. You can apply it to your life. Catch us on our webpage. Go to our webpage, subscribe. We would love to have some feedback from you. So go to the LYLASpodcast.com. And you can click a box under comments or access it. I forget what it says now, but something like connect with us.
Yes.
Go on there, shoot us a message, whether it's just something like, hey, really was vibing with this episode or whatever. But also we would like to have you subscribe so that we can send you updated information each week. It's, have our resources tabs. There's so much information on there. So we want to make sure that we can share that with the public, and then catch us on Instagram, Facebook, the LYLAS Podcast. Yeah.
Find us everywhere. Like, subscribe, share with a friend, right? You want your besties on this podcast too. So that way, we can all just sit around and share together and enjoy all of this loveliness. But please like, subscribe, share with anybody that you know. It's fun stuff.
Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, LYLAS.
Out.